description. Meanwhile, the attacks on Gaza continued. In January 2006, an important event took place which intensified the attacks. In January 2006, there was a free election in Palestinian territories. That's the first free election in the Arab world. Very free, carefully monitored, everyone agreed, free, fair, and so on. It had a flaw. The wrong people won. And the United States and Europe, and of course Israel, immediately reacted within days by announcing sanctions to punish the population for a major crime, voting the wrong way in a free election. And so this comes right alongside of the passionate declarations of our love of democracy and so on. It's what George Orwell famously called doublethink, the capacity to have two contradictory ideas in your mind at the same time and not to notice any problem. Almost a definition of the intellectual culture. Anyhow, the pressures on the Palestinians immediately intensified in punishment for this crime. The siege was instituted in June. A couple months later, the attacks escalated again. And on June 25th, an important event took place, another important event. An Israeli soldier was captured by Hamas, Gidon Shalit. Huge outcry over the world over this terrorist crime. One day before that, June 24th, an unimportant event took place. Israel sent the army into Gaza City, kidnapped two civilians, Noam brothers, spirited them across the border, and they disappeared into Israel's prison system, joining thousands of others, and most of them without charges. Well, that's an unimportant event, so it got a few words in the press and was forgotten. Normal. Then there was, in response to the, in response to the capture of Shalit, there was a very sharp escalation of the military attack against Gaza. It's Operation Summer Rains. Shalit, ever since then, has been a pretext for Israeli siege, violence, and in November. In June 2007, another event took place. There was the U.S. Israel attempted to carry out a military coup in Gaza to overthrow the democratically elected government with the cooperation of the Palestinian Authority, I should say. They attempted to overthrow the government. The coup was beaten back. Hamas crushed the coup, intensified its control. That led to more hysterical anger in the West about Hamas's terror. And the siege tightened. The attacks increased. Well, June was giving plenty of things, but just to pick important events. In June 2008, a truce was reached, ceasefire, between Hamas and Israel. The conditions were that Hamas would stop firing these homemade rockets at Israeli settlements, and Israel would open up the siege. Well, what happened after that is interesting. Hamas lived up to the ceasefire completely. If you read Israeli official reports, they concede that not a single Hamas rocket was fired. Israel, on the other hand, maintained the siege. In November 2008, Israel sent forces into Gaza, strongly violating the siege, the truce, and then rockets were fired both ways, all the casualties Palestinian as always. In December, the Hamas offered to renew the ceasefire. Israel considered the offer, rejected it, and instead attacked. That was the Gaza attack, December 27th, murderous, all-out assault, fully backed by the United States. The United States blocked the Security Council ceasefire. President Obama had been elected at that point. He wasn't yet in office. He was giving talks about all sorts of topics, but when repeatedly asked if he had anything to say about the Gaza attack, he said he couldn't because there's only one president, and therefore he can't say anything about this one topic. The attack ended exactly when the inauguration took place. Of course, timed for that purpose, so that Obama wouldn't have to say anything about it. And what he could say is, well, let's forget about the past and look forward, and that sort of thing. Obama at that point did make one good move. He gave a speech in which he announced that he would have a negotiator for Israel-Palestine, George Mitchell, and that's a pretty good choice. He was instrumental in negotiating the Northern Ireland settlement. It's quite good. However, Obama added in the speech that Mitchell wouldn't be able to do anything. The way he put it was interesting, and it passed without comment. What he said is, for the first time, there's a real opportunity for peace. The reason is that the Arab League had come out with its formal approval, once again, of the two-state settlement. Let's have a two-state settlement. And the Arab League had added that once such a settlement is reached, we should move on to normalization of relations with Israel. Well, Obama, in his speech, if you go back and read it, said it's very good. The Arab League should live up to their proposals and should proceed to normalize relations with Israel. Obama's an intelligent, literate person. He knew perfectly well that that was not the Arab League proposal. They called for a two-state settlement, and in that context, to normalize relations. Obama skipped the core of the proposal, put that to the side and said, go ahead and normalize relations, and everything will be fine. Well, to anybody who was thinking that meant nothing's going to happen. And in order to emphasize that, while calling for an end to expansion of settlements, which is a footnote, really. It's the settlements, not expansion, that's the issue. While calling for that, he also made it clear that there would be no penalty if Israel didn't live up to that. George Bush #1 had, in fact, proposed slight limited sanctions for settlement expansion, not much, but some. Another step. Well, last May, Israel attacked a Turkish ship in international waters, killed 9 people, one an American citizen, forced it into an Israeli port where the passengers were detained, finally deported. The ship was part of a flotilla that was attempting to bring humanitarian aid to besieged Gaza. This is a crime of piracy. In fact, theoretically, it should have engaged NATO. NATO should have responded to defend the Turkish ship under the NATO treaty. Turkey's a NATO member. Of course, that was unthinkable. But the crime of piracy in the high seas and the murders did arouse an international outcry outside the United States, where it was supported. Israel near total support. In fact, the picture in Israel, by maybe 95% of the population, is amazement that the world doesn't comprehend that the elite commandos who landed on the ship were brutally attacked by the passengers. So it was a real crime, attacking the commandos in international waters. Israel was also very surprised by the reaction. And there's some justification for that, because for about 3 decades, Israel has been hijacking ships in international waters between Cyprus and Lebanon, kidnapping passengers, killing them sometimes, taking them to Israel, sometimes holding them as hostages for long periods, and sometimes kind of disappearing them into the prison system. So since it's been going on for decades, what's the fuss about another